Today's episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service that offers thousands of documentaries and non-fiction titles from some of the world's best filmmakers, including exclusive originals. CuriosityStream is available on many platforms: web app, Roku, Android, Xbox One, smart TVs, iOS, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Amazon Kindle, Apple TV, and worldwide. Now, we cover lots of history on this channel, so today I'm making an appropriate recommendation: The Story of Europe. It's a 6-part docu-series with Dr. Christopher Clark that gives you the broad context of all the characters and offbeat stories that we talk about on my channels. If that sounds interesting to you, then you can go to curiositystream.com/brainfood for unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and non-fiction series. And right now, you guys can use the promo code BRAINFOOD to save 25% off the cost of an annual subscription, which comes out to only $14.99 a year, which is pretty crazy cheap. So check out that link or go to curiositystream.com/brainfood, 25% off. That's $14.99 for the whole year. And now today's video. Poppy culture is full of cliches and common knowledge regarding animals, which many of us take for granted. For example, it's commonly accepted that mice love cheese, cats should be given milk, or parrots can talk, ostriches bury their heads in the sand when threatened, and lemmings hurl themselves over cliffs to their deaths, even though in reality, mice are best indifferent to cheese. Most cats can't digest lactose, and drinking milk will give them bad diarrhea, and only certain parrots have the ability to mimic human speech, and ostriches have never been observed burying their heads in the sand, and the lemming suicide myth was started by a 1958 Disney documentary wherein the filmmakers deliberately hurled lemmings off a cliff. Yeah, really. Yet another common animal fact that is rarely questioned is that dogs prefer to urinate on fire hydrants. Indeed, so accepted is this fact that pet relief areas in airports and other indoor public spaces often feature a bright red plastic hydrant. But do dogs actually prefer fire hydrants, or is this just another baseless cliche that has managed to persist for decades uncontested? And if it is true, what is it that draws dogs to this particular piece of urban infrastructure? Well, let's find out as we dive into one of the stranger behaviors of man's best friend. At first glance, that dogs would be drawn to fire hydrants is rather puzzling. After all, if it is simply a case of dogs seeking out the closest urban approximation of a tree, boulder, or other natural feature, then we would logically expect them to go for all sorts of objects such as mailboxes, benches, light stands, or, actual trees. And while the classic bright color of fire hydrants is certainly distinctive, this also doesn't explain the phenomena, since dogs are red-green colorblind and can only distinguish shades of blue and yellow. Furthermore, as covered in our previous video, Why Are Circuit Boards Green?, not all fire hydrants are red. Indeed, the standard color for fire hydrants in the United States is actually yellow, with color-coded accents indicating the water pressure of that particular hydrant. Red for less than 500 gallons per minute, orange for 500 to 999 gallons per minute, green for 1,000 to 1,499 gallons per minute, and blue for 1,500 or more gallons per minute. So, what is it then about fire hydrants that is so irresistible to dogs? There are several theories, but at first it's important to understand why dogs urinate on random objects in the first place. When our canine companions simply wish to relieve themselves, they typically squat and urinate directly onto the ground. However, when they instead lift a rear leg and urinate on a vertical surface like a tree, wall, or fire hydrant, they are engaging in a behavior known as spraying or marking, in which urine is used to mark the borders of the dog's territory. Dogs will often mark objects that do not already carry their scent in order to establish ownership, a behavior familiar to any dog owner who has brought home a new piece of furniture, only to discover soon after that Rover has been a very naughty boy. Dogs will also urinate on objects already marked by other dogs, or sometimes wild animals, in order to erase the old smell, reassert dominance, and maintain their territorial borders, a behavior known as overmarking. This explains why dogs will typically circle and sniff an object several times before urinating on it. The urine used for marking is typically more concentrated and contains high levels of signaling compounds known as pheromones, which can be detected by other dogs up to 5 kilometers away thanks to a special scent receptor known as the vomeronasal organ. The urge to mark is more intense in intact dogs than those who have been spayed or neutered, and in male dogs compared to female dogs, with one study revealing that 90% of male dogs and only 10% of female dogs regularly engage in marking behavior. However, female dogs will engage in marking more regularly when they are in heat, as a means of signaling to male dogs in the area that they are ready for mating. When marking, the higher a dog can reach with its urine stream, the better. For if a dog simply urinates on the ground, the urine will simply be absorbed into the soil and the scent will not carry very far. Urinating Urinating on a tall object like a tree, rock, or wall, however, ensures that the scent will last longer and carry further. The height of the urine stream also indicates the size of the dog that produced it, which is why smaller dogs will often engage in amusing contortions and gymnastics in order to get their stream as high as possible. The higher the stream, the larger the dog will appear, and the more intimidated the other dogs will be. Which brings us to the first leading theory as to why dogs prefer to mark fire hydrants. Being relatively short and lacking branches and other obstacles like a tree, fire hydrants allow dogs to more easily get their urine stream to an optimum height for maximum scent coverage. Also, being a smooth, painted metallic surface, hydrants do not absorb or subject it to breakdown by bacteria, allowing the scent to linger longer and carry further. Another theory posits that while dogs cannot distinguish the color red, the red coloration of traditional fire hydrants nonetheless contrasts with surrounding objects, causing them to pop out against the background. Yet another theory speculates that the pigments in traditional fire hydrant paint mimic the scent of natural dog pheromones, fooling dogs into thinking that hydrants have already been marked by other dogs and triggering the overmarking behavior. While compelling as of this recording, no formal studies have yet confirmed the pheromone hypothesis, which remains mere speculation. So then, why do dogs prefer to urinate on fire hydrants? Well, so far as we know, they don't. Yep, no formal studies have been conducted on the phenomenon, so as far as is known, dogs don't actually exhibit a preference for fire hydrants over other common vertical objects like trees or walls. Though we believe that they do has likely got more to do with us than the dogs, as we selectively remember instances of dogs seeking out these distinctively brightly painted objects while ignoring all the others. And, well, that's a rather nice example of the tail wagging the dog, isn't it? Bonus facts. Though their name has become nearly synonymous with blind, unthinking self-destruction, lemmings, small mammals native to northern regions of Canada, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, do not in fact commit suicide en masse. According to a long-held myth, lemmings possess such a strong urge to migrate that they will mindlessly hurl themselves off cliffs or attempt to swim across vast bodies of water, exhausting themselves and drowning in the process. This notion was popularized by the 1958 Disney nature documentary White Wilderness, which featured footage of vast hordes of lemmings hurling themselves off a cliff into the sea, accompanied by the following dramatic narration. A kind of compulsion seizes each tiny rodent, and carried along with an unreasoning hysteria, each falls into step for a march that will take them to a strange destiny. That destiny is to jump into the ocean. They become victims of an obsession, a one-track thought. Move on, move on. This is the last chance to turn back, yet over they go, casting themselves out bodily into space, and so is acted out the legend of mass suicide. Only the entire sequence was a complete sham. For one thing, White Wilderness was filmed in the Canadian province of Alberta, which is landlocked and not the natural habitat of lemmings. Filmmakers were thus forced to pay local Inuit children to gather up large numbers of the rodents from other provinces and territories. In order to make a few dozen lemmings look like a horde of thousands, the filmmakers placed the rodents on turntables and used carefully controlled camera angles and tight editing to achieve the desired sense of migratory frenzy. But even this morally dubious trickery pales in comparison to the filmmakers' deliberate herding and, in some cases, physically throwing of the rodents over the cliff into the water below, which was not even the Arctic Ocean, but rather the Bow River. Thanks to this shocking cruelty, the myth that lemmings commit mass suicide was cemented in the public consciousness. In reality, the Disney film crew had conflated migration with a different behavior known as dispersion. Lemming populations can fluctuate wildly based on various factors, including predators, weather, and the availability of food, with their numbers exploding as much as tenfold in a single year. Once the rodents have exhausted their local food supply, they will, like many other animals, disperse in search of greener pastures. Along the way, some will fall off cliffs or attempt to cross a body of water and drown, but these deaths are neither the result of deliberate suicide nor frenzied, mindless instinct, but rather simply random accidents which are bound to happen with so many animals on the move. So when it comes to documentaries, perhaps it's a good thing that they don't make them like they used to. Another extraordinarily implausible animal myth that has somehow persisted over the years is that when threatened, ostriches will bury their heads in the sand, the logic being that the birds are so stupid that they believe that if they can't see the predator can't see them. So pervasive is this myth, which dates all the way back to ancient Rome, that to bury one's head in the sand has become a commonly understood metaphor for deliberately avoiding one's problems. As you have no doubt guessed, this particular myth is nothing more than that, a myth. In reality, when threatened, ostriches will take a rather more sensible course of action and simply run away, the birds being capable of sustaining speeds of 70 kilometers per hour for up to half an hour. So where did this bizarre misconception come from? Unlike many other birds, ostriches do not build nests, but rather lay and incubate their eggs in a hole in the sand. Occasionally, both the male and female ostrich will stick their heads into the underground nest in order to inspect the eggs or turn them with their beaks in order to regulate their temperature. When sensing danger, ostriches will also sometimes lower their body and head to the ground in order to reduce their profile and blend into their surroundings. It is thus more likely that some ancient Roman traveler witnessing these behaviors from afar assumed that the birds were burying their heads in the sand and a long-standing myth was born. However, one extraordinary and gruesome thing ostriches have been recorded doing is pulling their own heads off. Yep, on numerous occasions dating back to the 1890s, ostriches in captivity have been observed getting their heads stuck in fences and other obstacles, whereupon they proceeded to pull so hard to free themselves that their necks broke or their heads came clean off. As Ed McDonough, a spokesperson for the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, told the Orlando Sentinel following one 1997 incident at a Florida ostrich farm, it was a clean break too, like you would pull the head off a doll. Pop. More recently, this behavior was captured in a video posted to the Chinese microblogging site Weibo on June 5th, 2021, a video which has since been confirmed to be genuine. But if you still refuse to believe that such a thing can actually happen, then make like an ostrich and, well, you know,